Friday again, thankfully. Welcome to
Indeed.
Rabble Rants, Joe.
Welcome, indeed.
The headlines are all shit this week, but we do have great updates from the resistance. But yeah, I won't lie. The premiers and the PM have given us quite a bit to talk about today. Not a lot of headlines, but a lot to talk about within them. Yeah, it was quite the week in Canadian politics, at least for politics nerds. You know, some of this might have flown under people's radars. Hopefully not.
Oh, it has been weird as, and even on the chatters, I can tell you from lives I've been doing this week, there's been a lot of big questions in regards to, especially with regards to what the first week of government's been like, particularly in regards to legislation coming out. The House is finally sitting. We're trying to finally seeing things the government's doing, and opinion's not too good in regards to the first piece. I'm not talking about the throne speech. Obviously, there was a little kerfuffle about that, but
I should have put that in the notes. People were talking about they got upset with the NDP there. I'm never upset with
yeah,
the NDP at the same time everyone else is. It's oh yeah, it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand people, and there's people that are upset at the NDP because they weren't voting and they weren't standing with Canada. I'm like, and I'm really having a lot of problem in regards to some of those reactions. I try to stay, um, to stay my responses sometimes, but it's still one of those that's it's like, well, we need, you need to follow suit in regards to the liberals because of the nation. I'm like, mm, that's not great
You know
talking points.
you know what's ironic about that though
Mhm.
is those people weren't all that upset when the NDP did like pull the plug, even though it
Yeah,
didn't end up unfolding in that way. It was kind of similar in both respects there, but that when they gave their statement of they lost confidence in the liberals finally, like after all of that had gone down, it was Freeland, right? It was Freeland going in there and saying that she had lost confidence. She was upset about the capital gains tax,
yeah,
things. She was not upset about left wing things, just to
no,
kind of be blunt there. And they were like, nope, that's it, we're done. But now when it's like Carney's sitting there being completely open about austerity, military spending, nationalism, his first bill's there, so his intentions are already there. And now they're like, oh, well, not now. It's not advantageous now. It's like, do you ever want them to stand on principle? Like ever? Just
yeah,
like principle alone?
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the throne speech was one of those. I'm not sure why people are like it's it's obviously part of the process that they voted in the throne speech. I'm also looking at like I get voting against the throne speech. I don't think it makes much of a difference, and I'm not going to pretty much everything in the throne speech, and we watched the throne speech. Everything that was in the throne speech was what the liberals campaigned on. So that particular voting onto that particular legislation, well, that was done at the polls. So for me, it's like unless that throne speech is very different than what was at the polls, like regards to the campaign trail, like all right, fine. As opposed to now where you've got, as we're gonna get into the further stories, like the first bill being dropped in, Bill C2, it's a little different.
Yes, but that's not the NDP's role, right? Like,
No.
to be realists, they're not going to get anything done materially. So it all is
Yeah.
going to be performative. So let it at least be
Yeah.
performative uh, to principles, to the principles they were supposed to uphold from the very beginning and they fell off of. Even, you know what? Not even I'm torn on this because the more performative they are and it's not their true intentions, then the more people they're going to draw back into the fold. And that might just be the whole point of it rather than saying, because they're not very explicit. They don't say, we're not going to vote against it because of all the reasons we gave in
Yeah.
last week's live on the throne speech. It's the same reason when they stepped down, they weren't for ideal reasons. But, when I press people though, and I say, I don't care what the polls say. That's not like the entire popular vote, right? So it's like, what did you like about the throne speech? Like, what would you be happy down the road as being on record as kind of given that the thumbs up? Like, you don't like it, it feels harmful, it looks harmful. Like, you can't be like, well, where are we at in the election cycle and what did the electorate say? Because you were sent there by your constituents to kind of look at everything and go yay or nay. Is this good or is this bad? It's all the politicking that goes on and the strategizing that goes on that where the Overton window gets all messed up too. So
Yeah.
it's the one time I wasn't actually upset with them.
Yeah.
So
And as I'm sure we can probably go over many times, I think we've already done, which is, I mean, you're right. The NDP right now is going to be a lot of performative. They have to rebuild. There's a lot of work they need to do, and I don't think they've really shown everything they need to do yet in regards to talking.
yeah.
Like the leader stepped down, but there's still some other people that should step down that haven't.
No, they haven't done. I could do a whole special on their national director at this point.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to, but yeah, that's a hopeless cause. So I understand people that are in my replies going, but these are all the other reasons to be angry with them, and I'm like, yes, valid, all
Hmm.
valid. Just like not in this moment, but yeah, I would like to see them come out strong against Carney's first bill that you alluded to there. Um, Bill C2 is, what is he calling it? The Stronger Borders Act.
Um,
Sometimes the name is like everything with these things. I'm calling it the mass
Strong Borders Act,
deportation.
yes.
Yeah, the mass deportation bill. But it does other bad things too. I feel like that doesn't fully encompass the problems with that bill. Um, Jeremy Appel, I'm going to pull
Hmm.
up one of his pieces there. He did a good job. He was looking at the Toronto Star piece too, that really kind of explained it for folks. But talking about the dangers within Bill C2, and he rightfully calls it a capitulation. Here it is. Carney's capitulation. Jeremy seems a little bit surprised as he's kind of presenting this in his article, but it was written long ago. We had Ash in the studio driving this point home. Like, there was no way the Canadian economy was going to separate itself from the US ultimately. And they sure as hell weren't going to separate, like, border security off, right? This is something that's becoming more intertwined during Trudeau's reign. It started long before that, but we saw the Black Hawk helicopters we talked about here on the show, the fentanyl czar, all of these things that the U.S. demanded of border security. That was the first reason for the tariffs, right? Remember?
Right.
And Trudeau gave in there, even though that was like all something they wanted anyway. And now it's just like in hyperdrive.
Well, it's not even just that, because I mean, you're absolutely right. Everything in regards to especially, I mean, there's the big parts, at least the big groupings I see in regards to this bill, and every time I sit there and look at it, I'm like completely like trying to figure out what the hell's going on here. Um, they have all sorts of things in regards to immigration, in regards to border, whatnot. It's in there, but then you start getting into, well, now we're also going to be monitoring mail, all the mail. We can hold back the mail. Like, well, why? What does that have to do with the stronger border? What does that have to do with anything on the board? We're also going to be tracking your IPs, and we're going to be holding data. We're going to be asking, telecom companies or internet providers to hold on to this data. Like, and this is no longer about borders, but it's jumping in there and bringing in like Canada's Patriot Act into this act. I'm like, why are we doing this? This has nothing to do. This was not campaigned on. Why are we suddenly adding in security and especially warrantless searches? Is what some of this stuff is.
It wasn't campaigned on, but nobody was shy. I mean, not even the NDP about talking about border security as some sort of solution to anything,
Mhm.
right? So they weren't specific on what that meant. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Patriot Act because it's just like, but we did call it here on the show, where
Yep.
in moments of crises, we will be asked to give up rights of all sorts, right? Because it's, remember the language from the Thrones speech, trade war. I mean, although this is with the U.S. partner perpetuating that, it doesn't really matter. Everyone feels like we're in this moment of crises, conflict, and so border security makes sense to them. Plus, obviously, they've used migration as a scapegoat, the fentanyl ruse, not that we don't have a problem with fentanyl, but that it's not like going to be solved by border security, right? So they've laid the groundwork for this incredibly. But yeah, it's just these rights we'll miss them. You'll think, oh, that's a good idea for this or that. Airport security was what we gave it up for around 9/11. But they never left, and they, manifested themselves. They renormalized what we think privacy rights are or legal rights are. And then this is just like another erosion of those rights that will just kind of be normal if we don't resist them now, right? Rather than seeing them as just something that will inconvenience you at the border, maybe. Not if you're white, right? But we know they're checking, social media and stuff like that. For folks, they've announced also no visas to anybody who's found supporting Israel. There's a lot of reasons you don't want that border intertwined. That's not all it does, though. Oh, we didn't even welcome Kim. I'm kind of just noticing Kim is down in the bottom of the screen. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
Good we to started. Be here, Kim's going to help us talk about Bill 5, which is, on top of mind for folks in Ontario for sure, but is kind of a blueprint for other provinces. But I'm sure Kim will have something to say about federal news as well. Yeah, thanks, Kim. Good to see you. It's been a while. So another group, organizations within the movements that's flagging Bill C2 are the migrant rights folks. So Migrant Rights Network here in Canada, Justice for Migrant Workers. There is lots of subgroups as well that have already been in this battle, for status for folks, pushing back against the scapegoating of migrants for everything. And they're the ones calling this a mass deportation bill because of the changes it makes to the rules around who can and when you can apply for asylum here in Canada, particularly if you don't come at a controlled border crossing. So Carney will get blamed for this. It is his first bill, but again, this is Trudeau era. This was already probably in the works for some time. Or maybe Carney will get credit for it, right? Because the Conservatives got to be loving this prime minister. They secretly do, right? They can't say that out loud, but they do. This was for them, right? This bill was for them.
Pierre must be pissed. He's trying to go for re-election. All the stuff he's trying to promise is already being done. He's like, well, what am I supposed to run on? Personality?
That's when he pitches the social groups, right? That's when he throws trans people under the bus or something.
Probably.
To regain his footing. But yeah, his supporters watching this to be his first one being focused on, separating families, real Trump-style legislation. They're being appeased as well as Trump, right? So Carney keeps telling us one thing, that he is separating us from the United States, that he's making us more dependent from them. And meanwhile, he's going there, he's meeting them. Trump is headed here. And we are continuing to make deals that say otherwise. So that's really what Jeremy's getting at in his piece there. One thing I wanted to highlight as well is in the article here, I'll highlight it, it gives more powers to the immigration minister to do mass withdrawal of permits and whatnot, which will lead to mass deportations. But it also gives a lot more power to the Canadian Coast Guard and the Canadian Border Services Agency. And the note there is that neither of these agencies are subject to public oversight.
Yep.
I
saw that note too. Which is
what?
I saw that note.
That's a real trend in government these days. No government oversight. No public oversight. Sorry.
Yes. it's common in the United States as well, right? More and more things being compiled under the executive wing of the government. And yeah, fewer and fewer things accessible to us. Forget that every 4 years, some of this stuff needs constant maintenance in terms of like impinging on our rights. Like these are the agencies given more power to do the things that Joe was talking about earlier at the border, mail and what you're doing on the computer, all under the guise of like removing illegal migrants. But surely you understand that that's not what any of that's for. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's not what they're going to use it for ultimately. But yeah, again, great piece by Jeremy in Read the Orchard there, and breaking down a little bit more about that. I also wanted to share, Joe, can you pull up the Instagram post that's there? It's a call to action from the Migrant Rights Network. So yeah, they're flagging some of the other aspects around, they're already dealing with right now 3,000 permits expiring. Is it a day? Let me check my notes. Because the changes Trudeau already made to migrant rules, immigration rules, so international students were largely hit. Their permits are expiring as promised, as we talked about almost a year ago, right? And this would happen into the point where 1 million people or so would have to make a decision whether to live here illegally, which is not a term I like using. I'm using scare quotes there, but or leave, right? Or separate themselves from their community and whatnot. So they're mobilizing people, again, first educating people as to what the bill does. It hasn't passed yet, right? So the Liberals will have to work to get all this done. But again, I don't know what the Conservatives are going to oppose here. So chances are you're going to have to appeal to Liberals alone to get this pushed back. But yeah,
complain it's not hard enough.
What isn't? Oh, to migrate, like to make a refugee claim.
Yeah, well, no, the Conservatives are going to complain. Well, this doesn't go far enough. They need to do more to limits. So let's be honest here. Conservatives want to do a lot more aggressive. I mean, than this. And that's what they're going to complain is. Will they vote for this? I don't know yet. We'll find out. I wouldn't be surprised if they do vote for this thing. We'll vote for it, but it doesn't go far enough. We want more. They may make that demand in regards to let's put in more stuff and we'll vote for you. Remember, it's a minority government.
Yes, amendments are a thing. So some of the worst aspects of the bill, folks can appeal to Liberals to have removed. Appeal, in various mechanisms, using various mechanisms, right? I don't necessarily mean emailing them, but yeah, the Conservatives definitely can make some changes. I don't know if they're just going to be like this constant thorn in the Liberal side for, Pierre has to appear strong, like in fighting mode still. But typically we do see them voting alongside the Liberals, like historically a lot on bills like this, a lot of the economic bills. It's the progressive bills that are always tough to get through, right? Funny that. So yeah, definitely flagging Bill C2. If folks want to start pushing back, they can, rather than start from scratch, go to migrantrights.ca. You can find them on their social medias as well, but they've got a comprehensive website that'll plug you right into the campaigns. This isn't the only one they have. Remember, these are the folks that are fighting for status for now, status for all, something Trudeau actually promised and then did a complete U-turn. I can only imagine what that felt like as an org to think you were gaining ground like that and have it reversed like this so quickly. So definitely they can use a hand if you can at the very least boost their content.
One other part that I don't think we mentioned, though, which is this particular section here I got highlighted, which is there's elements of this that also remove due process to some of these applications in regards to asylum seeking. And this is being called by people in the organization, the immigration organization, not by any judge or anything else. And again, this is very much reminds me right now in the States in regards to due process being removed. Anytime you have something where you're saying, well, we're going to remove due process for this point, it's never a good thing. I've never, ever, ever seen anything where due process being removed. Yeah, that's a good part of something. And
Yeah.
how are we not reacting to this? Like loudly, like, no.
Well, yeah. Also, it's, you're seeing, not that they're listening to them, but they're going up against judges in the US, right? Like, Trump has come up with these policies. His federal agencies are trying to implement these policies of mass deportation and whatnot, ICE, and, moving people away, shipping them to El Salvador. And that's actually against US law, right? So
Yep.
what you're seeing Canada do is just make it law. Make it law that the immigration minister, acting under the demands of the prime minister and the caucus, the cabinet, can unilaterally make these decisions on withdrawing permits from groups at a time as well, not just like individuals, but people from X country or that meet X criteria, and just do that en masse. So they're almost, they're laying the groundwork to be able to behave like Trump without perhaps the legal repercussions that would come with it. I mean, they'd still come with charter challenges maybe, but it would be a lot easier. So, yeah. And I hope liberals are taking like a good look at Carney right now, like leading with this bill. There's a million things he could have led with, right? Like this, why is this so urgent? Why did this have to be the first one, right? This was a message to the wrong people. So, yeah, let's hope they're feeling the heat on this. I want to talk a little bit more about federal before we go into Bill 5, though. That's a signal to Kim as much as the audience. But Carney talked a lot about energy in the throne speech, right? Like, again, go back to our last week's live. We dissected that throne speech a bit. And his he says explicitly his main priority is the economy. And whenever he talks about the economy, he talks about energy projects. And although the throne speech did mention wind and solar, like that's not how you kind of connect. He uses it with language of connecting the provinces and connecting the nation. And so, this does kind of tie in with Bill 5, right? Because it's like these energy projects at all costs. And yeah, people got a little bit upset with me. I tweeted out, Carney's having seen the premier do all his dirty work for him. Right? He's kind of got that plan that I just described. But then Ford has got Bill 5 that we will explain fully. But also, this isn't one of our discussion points, but over BC NDP. They're like, don't get me started about the goddamn NDP. But over in BC, they have they've told the Prince Rupert gas lines going through. Fuck all the indigenous nations that are blockading and petitioning and building. We interviewed youth that were the Yixan youth that were mobilizing against this as well, and they're just like, no, we need to boost the economy. That is our priority, and First Nations are completely betrayed.
Well, and you heard that the pipeline has been determined to be substantially started, right? The Environmental Assessment Office has basically said, like, it's underway. It's already started. They haven't abided by any of the.
And the youth told us that, right? Like when we had them on the show on Blueprints, they were telling us like, this is why the road blockade is up, because we have to slow down the work that's going to do, because this is the trick they always use. They will say like, oh, we've done so much amount of infrastructure already. X amount of dollars have already been spent. Commitments for further contracts have been made, and it would be too costly to go back on them. And so it's almost like, how you like inch yourself farther away and be like, oh, I'm too far. I'm just too far to come back now. Like they do that on purpose. And that
Why ask for permission when you can ask for forgiveness?
Exactly.
And this is Carney's idea of reconciliation, folks. I'm telling you, like, this is what he meant when he said, I will consult, but, right? He said, I will consult, but with a purpose. And that purpose is to get that fucking pipeline built or whatever. And he'll say clean energy. I want to just flag for folks. Clean energy to him means LNG, right? He is still of this sect that is trying to sell liquid natural gas as the clean alternative. But we know better now, but he's hoping most of you don't know that. And so that is the projects that he's talking about. And yeah, we know he's met with the premiers and they were fucking giddy. Where is that video? We have to play that video, Joe. It's Ford's reaction. Any way you could load that up for me? Because
Let me see if I can find that.
when I say they were giddy, it is not an exaggeration. So he's been meeting with these premiers, and obviously he's been telling them what his plans are, that, you know, he will make it easier for them to crack down on protesters, that he is making deals with the US to get the tariffs removed, that he's doing all of these things that have, you know, Ford sitting up there and just praising him.
Yeah.
What do I have up there? It's maybe I can find it for you, Joe.
Yeah, I went to the URL. It's not there.
Okay, that's my bad, but folks can look it up if they'd like. And he describes Carney as Santa Claus, bringing all kinds of gifts. He doesn't detail what those are, but he says, you know, we've had very productive meetings. He is grinning, and he describes Carney as the giver of gifts. So, yeah. Please don't sit back and wait to see what else
Got the
Carney's gonna
video
do.
if you want it.
Do you? Can you
Pass
share
it.
screen?
I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, I
And
think
there it is. That might be it. Sorry, it's one of multiples that popped up. Hopefully that's it.
yeah, if the NDP comms are ever watching, like, this is the kind of stuff that you clamp down on and then distinguish yourself from them, right? Like, they're just feeding off one another, and absolutely no shame. Joe, are you pulling that up?
I'm pulling it up as we speak.
Thank
There
you.
we go.
Because, yeah, I think Colin DeMillo, if folks aren't following him, he gets a lot of great Ford sound bites. I'm not sure if this was him, but...
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure which one this is, but...
Okay,
This
here
one,
you
yeah.
go.
I'm going to be very blunt here. This has been the best meeting we've had in 10 years. Simple. Best meeting I've had in 7 years. And there was no expectations. The Prime Minister was going to come out and say, you get that project, you get that project. It was a great discussion. Now, we were all talking. Now it's time to put it into action. All of us are responsible. But I thought it was an incredible meeting, great communication, great collaboration, and we all walked out of that room united. And that's the most important thing. Now the Prime Minister is going to go to work, get the legislation passed, and we'll divvy it up. I described him today as Santa Claus. He's coming, and his sled was full of all sorts of stuff. Now he's taking off back to the North Pole. He's going to sort it out, and then he's going to call us. So, and we're building it. Short of Santa Claus is my big belly. I got to loan it to him.
I just want to say to all my Liberal friends who said, oh, Carney's going to save us. Really? Really? Okay. No. No, people. No. I'm just like beyond mad. I can't even go there.
Yeah, no, I imagine I hope a lot of Liberal voters are frustrated. This is what we meant when we post-election and everyone was cheering. It was a real kind of problem for us, thinking like he's been very clear on his plans, and you know,
They're not frustrated yet. I can tell you that based on conversations I've had.
Don't say that, Joe.
Tell us, Joe, what did they say?
They're actually, some of the messaging they're saying is like, well, you gotta give him a chance. You gotta give him a chance.
Oh,
He's just got started. They're still at that point. You know, it always starts with denial. It always starts with denial.
You're very right.
So it's going to take them a little bit of time, and eventually it's got to get to this point. Like, we've given them a lot of time. What now? Like, at what point is it like, no, it's been a lot of time now. You guys gotta like come to us now and meet us halfway. Like, this is no longer working.
Mm-mm. Well, we shall see.
Well, we're here to build up resistance, right? Like, get folks a little bit riled up so they can do something about it. And Bill 5 in Ontario sure has folks riled up, thankfully. I'm seeing a lot of people mobilize on this. Let's first explain Bill 5 and its detriments, Kim.
Sure.
Together. Joe, you're invited too, but like, this is Kim's time to shine. And then we'll talk about the resistance to it, because it is broad, right? So what do you want to tell us about Bill 5? Why is it bad? Oh, first, it's called Unleashing the Economy, in case that didn't scare anybody.
Right?
Like, what is
Like
that?
our economy needs unleashing.
Sorry.
It's like, just, we're all for sale. Come by us. It's just
Well, isn't
so
that
awful.
our provincial motto, right? Ontario for sale, Ontario open for business. That's what it is.
That's open for business. Yes,
Yeah, it used to be
exactly.
like yours to discover. But
Well, and before we get into Bill 5, I do want to put a plug in for Bill 17 because it also passed this
4.
week. And it was called Protect Ontario by Building Faster and Smarter Act. Again, another one of those oxymorons that are just impossible to get our heads around. The cognitive dissonance in all of this is obscene in the sense that it comes back to the Greenbelt stuff, which is, how stupid does he think we are? Does he really think that he is selling us this and that we believe him? I don't know. I find it insulting, personally. I really
maybe
do.
he doesn't care.
He definitely doesn't
There's
care.
not much we can do, right? He's got the majority government, and now he pulls out all of these extra stops where there's less public debate and less consultation and
they don't
less
go to
ability to sue him if it's harmful.
Offices. No, there's no input to the government, no way to actually access the government at all. I have a very good friend who went to most, if not all, the committee meetings on Bill 5, and she very clearly articulated that it was a pro forma process. They were not listening to anyone's points, and they had no good comebacks. It was just literally, without saying it blatantly, well, we're just doing this because we have to. They were doing it because they had to. That was it. The committee meetings were pro forma, and that was all. Back to why Bill 5 is a problem. They are now
like where to start, right? Like,
okay, how do I
just
explain
pick one, and we'll go from there.
In a nutshell, the government has yet again reduced our ability for input. They have given the cabinet and the premier the ability to create what are called special economic zones. So similar to the MZO or minister zoning orders, they're very similar, except even more expansive. They can actually designate a project, a place, a facility, they can describe. There's no limitations in this bill is the problem. There's no parameters. There's no guardrails. It's carte blanche, blank check all the way. They can literally say, Ring of Fire is a special economic zone, and we're going to allow these mining companies to go in without due process, without environmental restrictions or assessments. And by the way, they don't have to follow any of the typical employment laws. So
labor laws, or municipal.
Or municipal. What's municipal? That's Bill 17. They just yank any municipal authority at all. And so, yes, again, so in addition to Bill 5, which is we can do whatever we want, when we designate this, like I'm waiting for him to come back and designate the province of Ontario as a special economic zone, right? Like that's what he's going to do. Anywhere that there is any resistance to what they want to do, he will designate it as a special economic zone because there are no limits. There are no parameters for designating a special economic zone. No parameters at all.
That tunnel under the 401, he wants to include Ontario Place is another.
Yeah.
Or whatever they're building. Can we even call it that anymore? But
a spa.
Yeah. And so Bill 17 compounds this issue where they have carte blanche and says, and just in case we haven't designated something as a special economic zone, we're making sure the municipalities can't do anything that we don't want them to do. So they're not allowed to implement green building standards that aren't already part of the Ontario green building standards. So there's going to be absolutely no way for a municipality to determine its own fate. It will be determined by the province, period, full stop. And nothing we can do at the municipal level will change that.
Yeah,
This is
reminder, municipalities are a creature of the province. So, even if they do get all uppity about it and try to do something, they could be curtailed quite easily.
very easily. Yeah, this is literally hog tying them and making them fall in line with the province's wishes. So this is where it comes back to, what are we going to do? So I was thrilled to see the Indigenous response to this. I was so excited because I like to follow Indigenous leads whenever possible. And this is a great opportunity for us to do that. The Chiefs of Ontario have made it very clear. When I was at the rally on Wednesday at Queen's Park, they articulated that diplomacy is over. They had tried, and now is time for action. And we will meet them on the ground. And my call out to all of my friends and activist buddies, and even all of the people that are working so hard to bring petitions and delegations and all the other wonderful processes we thought we had, it's going to be time to put your actions where your heart is. And I will say, we're going to have to stand in front of our Indigenous nations to protect them from the onslaught of government suppression that is going to come. So this is about being a good ally, in my personal opinion. And I'm happy to hear any criticism on my opinion. I'm open to that. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I was speaking to a couple of my very close friends at the rally who are in fact Indigenous. And I asked them, should it not be our turn to stand in front of you and protect you from this suppression, as opposed to us being your allies and standing behind you and supporting you with, petitions and rallies? And I think they were pretty keen for that. I think the anticipation of having allies take the front line on their behalf and stand in front of our own colonial government and say, no, we're not part of this. We're not going to let you do this. We are abiding by the treaties. We have the legal right to abide by these treaties, and you are breaking the law, not us. And it's time to stop allowing these governments to try to criminalize good behavior, because that's essentially what they're doing. I'm going to put a plug in it for the moment because I'm just going to go on a rant, and that's not really helpful.
Well, it's called Rabble, Rants.
But yeah, that's the name of the show.
We make space for that. Don't you worry.
Awesome.
I think they like it. Yeah, because that's how folks are feeling, right? Like getting it off your chest sometimes is like the first step, but then, you're making a call to resistance. And to your point there on allies, I've heard the same too. Again, you're like another white woman chiming in there, but in terms of the Palestinian movement as well, or there have been other times where folks have asked you, do you want to come to the mic or you want to say something, and I'm tentative to take up space, for all the reasons Kim discussed, and I've been told, it's the same reason you need men talking to men about misogyny for the large part as well, because it exists, and folks tend to listen when it's coming from like within their circle, or at least when it's not coming from the folks that they think less of, like they've been marginalized in their minds as well. And so for white folks, for settlers to get up and say these things, say land back, to make space for that, is a message to all the other settlers there. Like it carries more weight because of the racism we all hold, right? And from growing up in a colonialist state and all of those inherent stereotypes and whatnot that we hold, it's just the message sometimes does have to be coming from allies. It's important, right? But not you're not taking the lead, you're not changing the message, but just like demonstrating, right? Like that.
That's right.
And exactly,
can we elaborate on
Defenders
that for
have
a
done so
minute?
much heavy lifting, man. Like we have.
Yeah, exactly, right? Isn't it our turn to take on our own government, right?
Well, that yes, of course, for many reasons. I mean, that ship didn't sail, like we're still there, but that happened a long time ago. We're past due, but we owe so much. And like, I got mad at, I don't even know what I was talking about. I was like, these are the folks that like take it upon to protect all our water. right? We aren't doing shit, pretty much. Like, I know there's good organizations out there that do water work and whatnot.
Yes.
But as a whole, as a society, we are just like okay with our water getting totally fucked up irreparably. And land defenders are the ones that understand the connectedness of water, not just the waterways, but to like our well-being in a way that we don't, I think, get enough. So that's maddening. To take that burden on when they're already, you know, disproportionately focused on with police and police resources. So, you know, taking that front position at direct actions is important for those reasons too, right? Like, because it's true, cops are less likely to strike at white people than they will Indigenous people. We know this, right? So it's just a bit of logistics and safety where you can form a perimeter. Maybe you do take blows, you know, maybe they don't hold back because cops are cops. But why our Indigenous brothers and sisters or siblings continuing to do all the heavy lifting is just not right. I want to there's a few more points on Bill 5 that I'd love folks to know about so they can go out there armed. The Endangered Species Act, we've talked about it a couple times, but it's worth repeating that it removes the Endangered Species Act, which, you know, whether or not you care about whatever species out there, it was like this tool that activists were able to use and land defenders, to a large part, protect tracts of land, you know, like big portions of land could say, okay, well, if you fuck this up, this whole species will be gone forever. And the law was strong enough to be like, well, I don't care what your environmental assessment says. Like, there's no arguing this. And it was like this, not a secret tool. It was kind of a secret tool. But, you know, with the provinces having their own level of Endangered Species Act, the feds have similar laws that are just, you know, remember, at any all costs, he's going to get these energy projects through, like horned owl, or I don't even know if there's a thing called a horned owl, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, it be damned, the salamander here in Vaughan.
Well, I think the important thing to point out there, Jessa, is that yes, they've removed the Endangered Species Act as we know it, and one example of how they've implemented this new one is that a habitat is no longer a tract of land, as you just mentioned. It is now the home of the animal. And it's like, so if
like the nest, the den,
a hole in the tree's hole and that little part, that's the habitat, not the fact that he needs to hunt for kilometers away to find food to eat. And so this is a way to completely defang any environmental protection at all. So essentially they can claim they have environmental protections, but they don't. They have eradicated the bill. It is gone.
Well, that's worse than I thought. You know, it just gets worse and worse. But isn't that how they treat us, right? Like, it does, you know, you got a house, you have somewhere to live. It doesn't matter what the air is like. Like, I've got smoky air today here, and it doesn't matter how much it costs you to live there. It doesn't matter how far you have to go to get to, like, available food. And, oh, it's just so on brand for the conservatives. But folks were really, like, they mobilized around Queen's Park on this. There was so much noise made. And I want to talk about Saul Mamakwa getting removed from the legislature. I hear Joe tippy-tapping.
Yes, I'm not tapping for that. I'm
okay,
always tapping.
I've got it. It's, so Ontario NDP MPP. Now, is he the only Indigenous MPP? I was trying to rack my brain.
No, he is.
This isn't what I wanted.
That's my understanding, that he is the only Indigenous. Yeah.
I would love if someone could pull up Saul's video, because I have Ford's response, and that's useless to me. So we did see a lot of resistance from the official opposition on Bill 5. The Liberals also attempted to push back on this within the House. Amendments, a bit of filibustering was attempted. But when Saul got up, it was like none of that, right? So he was quite literally getting up to speak truth, but relay a message from constituents, from Indigenous nations who have been dealing with Doug Ford, because obviously they're not in the legislature. So the fact that he was removed, I mean, I played that video for folks that aren't all that political, and they were kind of shocked at how harsh that treatment was and how swift it came. I can't believe I didn't. But either way, so Saul, well, I'll just assume we don't have it, but Saul.
Okay. Yeah, I can't find it yet.
He gets up and he says, you know, the premier has been speaking untruths. He says that he respects treaty laws. He says he respects Indigenous people. This is not the case. You know, he's speaking untruths, not lies. You know, we always talk about these euphemisms that are used. He used one of them, and the speaker, like, immediately, you know, gave him the 3 requests to withdraw, gave him his warning, and then boom, he was out. And Merritt Stiles, the Ontario NDP leader, left with him. And this is something she did not do with Sarah Jama. Hopefully she's learned her lesson, even if it's, again, performative, that what solidarity looks like. But it came the day that Indigenous people were outside the legislature too, right? So that sent a message from Ford. I know it was through the speaker, but yeah, this is what they think of Indigenous
did you want the
rights.
video of him being kicked out? Because I think I found it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think people should see, like, how harsh it actually came down, and you can hear the emotion in Saul's voice. I don't know if he was expecting to be removed.
Yeah, I think I've got it.
There are rules in the legislature where you can't call people a liar. You can do that, like, outside the legislature, but you can't do it inside. Like, our democracy.
So this is just to give credit where credit's due. This is CP24's video. And I'm going to see if I can
put it in the same place. I can take care of it.
Oh, sorry. Say again.
If you put it in the same place, I can pull it up for if it's a link.
Okay. Sounds good. Here. And the time you want is 3:44.
Grassy Narrows was putting up a large part of the fight here. I know that they were mobilizing folks. What other groups were down there, Kim? Before we get to Saul,
Sorry, you said which group was down there?
I know Grassy Narrows mobilized, but who else was down at Queen's Park? Can you name any other organizations?
Oh my gosh, I should have made a list. I actually videoed our sister from BC who came in to stand with them and say an Indigenous prayer to the drums. It was absolutely phenomenal. I'll send you the video and you can post it somewhere. So there were many groups. There were the one group, I'm trying to remember the name of it, Idle No More. They are talking about resurrecting Idle No More and making it a movement again to protect the lands that are being threatened right now. So that was very exciting.
CUPE Ontario, so that's like Ontario's largest public sector workers, they have announced that they will mobilize alongside of First Nations communities that are promising
they were
to
definitely
resist
there
this.
with their flag.
Yeah. A lot of climate justice groups as well have voiced their solidarity, and you can expect them on the front lines. I wonder, Last Generation, if we saw them doing some work. We'll get to them when we get to the disruptive updates.
Yeah.
But
it's not specifically related, but I think it can be.
It should be, right? Like, yeah. Environmentalists really have to look at Indigenous rights and sovereignty as one of the ways to kind of get where you need to go, because, you know, leaving all these major decisions to bankers and people just intent on resource extraction above all else, you're just going to keep banging your head up against the wall, right? Like, it has to be an anti-capitalist kind of push, and surely that has to include or have Indigenous people at the forefront. But
100%.
Land back scares white people sometimes. But here's and it got decent press coverage, as we can see that So hopefully a lot of people in the province saw
NDP MPP
this.
Saul Mamakwa was thrown out of the legislature today as the government moves to further limit debate on its controversial mining bill. Here's a look at what happened.
Mining bill.
Last week, the government said that they respect First Nations, that they respect treaty rights. Speaker, we know the Premier is telling untruths to First Nations about...
We'll ask the member to withdraw.
Not telling the truth.
But that's the truth.
I will ask the member to withdraw.
That is the truth. Rowing.
We'll ask the member to withdraw.
Speaker, Premier is telling untruths. That's the truth.
Mamakwa was ejected after being named by the Speaker. Some fellow MPPs applauded him as he was escorted out.
Yeah. So he gives a presser, trying to explain how he's feeling, and he just reasserts himself there that, he was speaking the truth.
And he did come out and speak at the group that Wednesday after he had been thrown out. And it was very powerful to hear Saul speak. And all of his colleagues came out and stood with him. So they are fully behind him, which is good to see, because I was, very disappointed in Sarah's treatment, obviously. But we're going to look at the positive side now. Hopefully they've learned their lesson and they're going to support Saul and where it's going.
Yeah, the true test will come when the disruptions start, right? Where will they be?
That's right.
That's my issue with the resources that the Ontario NDP has, the amount of supporters that they have, and emails. Will they call their people out to reinforce the lines, or will they just move on to the next? Not that it's their fault, but this won't be the last time they'll have to go up against Ford, and so will they just move on to the jour of the day? Like our soup of the day there, and it's just like. We'll see what that support. It's kind of easy to stand behind them, walk out of the legislature, and say that they're going to fight this. But as we said, like, the negotiations are over. First Nations, the folks that are at the front lines, are saying, like, we're done talking, right? And that's not just talking to them. No. They're talking to us. Like, that's it.
That's right.
Just fold up those petitions right now. Like, that is done. We are at a new phase. So hopefully they're talking to politicians as well. So let's just see. Like, I always, any praise I give the NDP, it always has to be with a little asterisk, because it's like, it has to be tangible. It's kind of easy to be the opposition. It's not easy to do it meaningfully, though.
Right.
Anything else on Bill 5? One thing is just, I think everyone's sitting there go, how can they do this? Like, that sounds awful. And it is. It's unconstitutional, and he knows it, right? Yeah. Ford has said, he's been pressed by the media. What are you going to do? Are you going to use the notwithstanding clause? And his quote is, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. When we get there, not if we get there, right? So he's expecting a fucking charter challenge. He's expecting on wasting more tax dollars, defending really bad and unconstitutional policies.
Which is so frustrating.
It is. Because they get elected on the guys that they'll save the government money, and they do anything but, right? They spend it on, like, the worst shit we could think of.
Legal nonsense. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So no, I'm waiting to hear, and I haven't yet, but I will keep close tabs to see what the next step is. So we know where it's headed. We just haven't had any direct communication or instructions at this time. But there will be. They're coming.
Keep us in the loop.
Absolutely.
I do have a good headline, sort of ish. Like, it's not like a happy headline, but it's a positive development, and apparently it's already been in the works. But the RCMP made an announcement, probably because they've been pestered so much since the Maple dropped their website, and have been other sources have been doing a good job as well, but of drawing attention to the fact that there are many Canadians or people living in Canada that have fought with the IDF. So who could be, or likely are, right? Because the whole damn thing is guilty of war crimes, genocide, right? And we're in an era of really scrutinizing who we let across our borders, aren't we? Aren't we? We're supposed to be. But apparently, we see Eve Ongler out there pressing liberal ministers, asking them about this a lot, asking them, what do you think about the fact that there's war criminals living in Canada? And, oh, I had no idea. Well, if you didn't know, so I've got it going along the bottom. It's findidfsoldiers.net. David Mastracci put this together. The Zionists tried to take it down many times. They have had all kinds of headaches since putting this up, but they've also had a lot of traffic. And it originally was published with 83 names. Thank you, Joe. And it's now up to 163. Don't scroll too fast. Let's see if folks can spot anybody they know. But we can just run this in the background or something. But yeah, so the RCMP have announced that they are in fact investigating the possibility that there are war criminals here in Canada. They say they started this. When did they say they started this? In early 2024. They just didn't tell anybody about it. I get it. Police like to do everything under the radar without any public scrutiny. So they're calling it a structural investigation, though. And they make clear in the press release. I mean, I don't know if we're going to throw up the RCMP press release, but I don't really like to regurgitate their shit. But one thing that they do say is it's not a criminal investigation. They want to make sure you all know that. I guess it could become a criminal investigation, but it has to start somewhere, and it's structural. So I don't know how much money that they're spending doing this, because there's a website you could just go grab them or at least round them up. Anyway, we don't cheer for cops, but either way, we know that they're here. It's not like a mystery on whether or not. A lot of the way that the Maple built the database wasn't even all that secretive, because these fuckers are just boasting about it on their social media.
Well,
so
exactly.
You can read at the top how they put it all together. But yeah, they're on Facebook going, just got back from blowing up some kids in Gaza, and they think we won't document this for all sorts of reasons. So yeah, if you ever thought who's watching this?
Yeah, they're filming their own crimes. And again, they're also feeling entitled to do this. They've been told, especially if you're in Israel, everything you're doing is by divine right. So how can it be a crime? How could it be wrong?
Yeah, it's incredible that they're openly waging a holy war, and very few people kind of refer to it that way, right? It's still done under states versus state. We use language war. Even in that stupid press release from the RCMP, they call it the Israeli-Hamas conflict. But it's a fucking holy war, right? They use biblical language and whatnot. When I was drawing up the notes for this RCMP investigation, it reminded me, here they are kind of acknowledging, yeah, we might have war criminals here. The language they use is classic, though. They're not kind of singling anybody out, really, any war criminals. But just kind of sub note. Remember Mark Miller, immigration minister? I don't think he's still the immigration minister. I should know that, but either way, his plan to like bring people over from Gaza, right, to rescue and evacuate folks who had connections to family here in Canada, like nobody's come, or it's like single digits that amount of people that have come over, and largely because the security clearance that folks would need to evacuate from Gaza in the first place has to come from Israel. So like the same state you're kind of acknowledging that is committing a genocide, trying to wipe these folks out, the Canadian government, the only way they can know that they're not Hamas is Israel has to clear them. And so we can blame the minister because it's a shit plan and, it's wrought with problems. But ultimately, it's, again, the Zionist state kind of saying who's safe and who's not safe. So I'd like to see where this goes. The only reason the RCMP again made the announcement is because people generated enough noise by finding out that there are so many IDF soldiers here in Canada. Like 163, that's just what David Mastracci, who also does like everything else at the Maple, like along with Alex Kosh. But, he has a job, he does a lot of things, and he's been able to maintain and build up this database. So if you know of any folks that are fitting this description and they're not on the list, you can forward it to them. They've got a submission part in the website as well that I've got running along the bottom of the screen there. Again, it's findidfsoldiers.net. So, yeah, other countries are doing similar efforts. Notably, I think New Zealand is like top producer of at least repercussions for IDF soldiers coming into the country. But any other headlines folks we purposely did not talk about Elon and Trump bickering back and forth because I feel like
Who cares?
it's a distraction.
Exactly.
But I'm wondering, before we kind of update folks on what the grassroots are doing and give some calls to action. Oh, I do have something. Oh, that's...
When did you want to talk about Last Gen and the actions going on over the last few days?
Yeah, I mean, like, once we move into disruptive updates, okay. Joe, are you good on headlines?
I think I'm good. I'm just taking a look. There is still right now, at least in Ottawa, there is, I don't know if that's in the disruptive updates, but we're still continuing watching in regards to activity, in regards to the city trying to put in bubble zones. Much like Toronto has got the bubble zones, Ottawa's right now has, they're right now trying to push through bubble zones around not only schools, but community centers and places of worship, which is really, and 500-meter bubble zones around every place of worship, community center, and school around Ottawa. You seriously cut down the areas that you can do protests. And there's a lot of disagreements I've been seeing. Obviously places like Rise in Ottawa have been pushing to try to get to stop this, but they're pushing pretty hard to try to put this into place, and it's probably going to be going into place. And again, places of worship, I understand, schools and places of worship, they want to protect, but when you allow this, you're giving safe zones for activity that should be allowed to be protested. And
I think that's the bigger issue. Rather than having bubble zones around physical locations, why can't we have bubble zones around activity, right? I don't know. So, for example, if a church is being used for nefarious purposes, it isn't a church during that time. But when it is holding a ceremony or any sort of church business, then it is protected, right? Like, why are we just saying carte blanche? They can't have access to it. I don't understand. Because, for example, if you had a child in a daycare that was not doing what they should be doing and you wanted to protest that daycare, you're now being told you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. There's, and I mean, the activity one at least is a better sort of view of it in regards to, at least, you're monitoring that, because again, if you've got a synagogue that's selling illegal Palestinian land, just saying the synagogue's existence is what's being protected, even though it's doing something illegal. At least if there's a service going on, then you can say, well, if there's a service going on, that's what you're protecting.
That's right.
And even there, I get kind of gray. I'm like, well, what if they start trying to sell the land while they're doing service? Just that's where it gets kind of gray. And this is where I'm like, no, if you don't allow this, like in regards to protest, you are creating safe zones for places. I mean, again, we've had politicians, move offices within bubble zones. Why? So that they won't get protested.
Yeah.
We've seen this abuse.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, we just need to put exclusions so that politicians can't move in there. I'm like, yeah, cool. We'll trust the politicians to put in that exclusion because that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
They'll be reasonable because they've been so reasonable up to this point, especially in Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we reported on the arrests outside CanSec, and if you look at the legislation in Toronto that has been passed, or some of the other cities, Brampton and Vaughan, and Ottawa, it's pending. That wouldn't qualify. There's no way. You might be able to make an application, but not for the location at all. It's a conference center, right? It's a public place, and we interviewed a legal observer that was there, but has experience in going this wouldn't even apply. But so what does that tell you? The reality is they already create bubble zones, right? Cops already set up when an action's happening, and they decide where you're going to be allowed to go, where you're not going to be allowed to go. And it's not based on like what is public, what is private. It's based on just really arbitrary decisions made by those in power. So, if the prime minister is going to go into that restaurant, chances are they're going to have a perimeter set up, not because there's a bubble zone, but what the bubble zones do is they add this whole other level of penalties, right? Like you're not just arrested for mischief or, trespassing, ticketed for trespassing or whatnot. Then you could have up to $100,000 fines, the city of Toronto, right? One of the penalties. Or if you have Carney pass it, he wants to make changes to the criminal code, you'll have a criminal conviction, right? Simply for being within the bubble zone, like an added level of charge. So this is, a tool like that you just don't want. I mean, some people argue, we have bubble laws for abortion services or healthcare providers when anti-vaxxers lose their shit. There are laws already in place that where folks can designate areas for kind of public safety reasons. But you could argue that we don't actually need those laws. You don't need those laws. Like, again, obviously we've given police scrutiny to go and say, you're not coming here. Or as a community, we can make things happen where, you nullify the harms that, anti-abortion protesters do or anti-vaxxers do. We don't need to rely on law and order to kind of fix that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, one of the arguments I remember hearing in regards to for the bubble zone is they said, they were talking about how the anti-vaxxers were protesting at schools around Toronto area, I think, and people were like, well, at least if we had the bubble zone, they would prevent them from banging on the windows of kids in school and traumatizing them. I'm like, but would it? I mean, there's this is already a violation as it is. People are trespassing onto school property to bang on the windows.
Yeah.
The law's already being broken. There's already something wrong here. It's not a question of legalities. The bubble zone wouldn't have helped you there. It's a failure of the police system to prevent people to trespass on private property. Because a school is still private property. It's publicly accessible because it permits to, kids and whatnot, but you still get trespass if you're an adult in the school because you're not supposed to be there on the property. It's adding in things that we don't want, and it's not addressing the issue that they're concerned about, which is keeping the kids safe. You want to keep the kids safe? This isn't it. You already got the laws. You already got the protections that's in there. The kids, nobody's supposed to be allowed on the property unless they're authorized.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something folks should definitely be resisting, but not completely planning around, right? I'd hate for, because, I scrolled past the map there a second ago. If you abide by it completely, it comes with risks. So it's easy to ask people to take risks, other people to take risks. But at the same time, it really does reduce our power. Everything then becomes just performative on our half because we're only protesting in the spaces they say we're allowed, where we won't disrupt anything, where we won't, protests should be intimidating to a certain degree for certain reasons. Like, I'm not going to pretend that it's all just supposed to be some peaceful gathering to just merely look at one another and know you're not fighting alone. Like, it's a showing of strength as well, right? It's like we are ready to mobilize these people to further ends. And we know that those further ends aren't even being able to block the entrance where war criminals are gathering, then, we can't listen to them, right? Like, surely. But $100,000 fine, I mean, that is fucking steep.
Yeah.
That is steep. So, yeah, Ottawa's one place, though, I figured, they probably already have all these special fucking laws to protect politicians and the Hill and whatnot that, I know we didn't see them implement any of it during the convoy, but I'm sure they would love to have those laws now going into a possible another uprising of the right there. So, this is, again, why we don't cheer for laws that we think can be weaponized against our opponents, because they are non-discriminatory when it comes to applying these.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just another way to silence public participation. unfortunately. And those opportunities are becoming fewer and fewer. So yeah, it's just yet another way to, I mean, democracy is not a friend to capitalism or colonialism. It's a thorn in their side. So anything they can do to reduce and limit democracy, they are doing.
Folks hearing this and dismayed at these developments, one thing you can do is, if you have the means, donate to a local legal defense fund.
Yeah.
Ottawa has a very robust one, and they just had a lot of arrests at CanSec. I think the number went up to 15 by the end of it. So they are making calls. Even if you go to Labor for Palestine's website, they are asking for calls for that particular community's legal defense fund. Toronto has the Toronto Community Justice Fund. TC, whatever those acronyms are, right? I'm not very good at that, but there are places where, $5-10 helps pay for lawyers, pay for the other supports that folks need when they're arrested to go through the system. So I know it sucks to see all this and the progression of these, strong arm laws, but there are tactics that folks are employing that make it not so bad for folks who've been arrested and are finding ways so that they don't end up in jail or are at least freed as soon as possible. So I encourage folks to, if you're across Canada, to look locally. There's probably a community defense fund you could support. There's other disruptive updates, though. So, Ottawa rose up against the Weapons Manufacturer Convention. What is that noise? Is that me?
That might be from me.
Yeah, I think it's you. Because I muted Kim for a second just to test your mic.
Yeah, you gotta. Thank you.
Sorry, it wasn't you. So, the good news is after we unload all those headlines on you and all that kind of bad news, we do kind of follow up with proof that folks are fighting back against it. So, we did pepper it, right? We talked about the resistance to Bill 5, and we're talking about the resistance to the migrants bill, or the deportation bill in terms of migrant rights. And we also have had some victories this week. Let me just start at the top so I don't jump around. I don't have an image for this. Again, I was a migraine took a couple hours out of my day today. But there on June 14th, so I'll maybe bring this up next week as well, and I'll have more information. But there is a National Day of Action against Scotiabank's funding of genocide. We have talked about this on the show many times, not the Day of Action, but why there's so much resistance to Scotiabank in particular. They hold a lot of investments in Elbit Systems, which is a major arms manufacturer for Israel. They are on the list for BDS, but the actions go way beyond that. The ties with the Giller Prize, Scotiabank's had to cut ties there because of pressure activists put up. It's all surrounding their investments in the companies that are profiteering off of the genocide. So June 14th, kind of be aware that there'll be some action there. This is going to be teamed up with, I think, World Beyond War, Artists Against the War on Gaza, Writers Against the War on Gaza, No Arms in the Arts. So we're seeing a lot of coalitions. It just reminded me of the episode we put up this week. I talked to education workers who've done equity work for a long time. And they talk about how on the issue of Palestine, they saw all their equity circles kind of come together and mobilize to this one end in this time. So I think a lot of people are seeing that. And there's not many moments in our history that we can point to where that happens, where social movements find and accept that there is a thread that binds them all, whether it's temporary, like this genocide, or whether, it's like that working class consciousness that we try to build, but it's happening. It's happening. So lots of coalitions being built to push back against this. And one of the other victories this week in New Brunswick, I know I'm jumping around, Joe. The New Brunswick Labor Federation. I sometimes shit on the East Coast Federations of Labor because a lot of them include cops. Ontario includes prison workers, but I'm kind of getting sidetracked. They did have a victory here. So the entire Federation of Labor in New Brunswick have voted for a full arms embargo. Now, this is important on the coasts, especially because we have seen so many examples of how workers can really put the brakes on the war machine. Whether they're actually working and building machines of war, or the dockyards, all right? The railways and the dockyards, shipyards. Yeah. So this is one way that we've talked about many times when we talk about labor for Palestine. Why Palestine is a workers' issue is, for all the reasons that like injustice anywhere is an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, like that. But also, just practically speaking, they wield such immense power as, being in the wheels of production. So congratulations to the folks who mobilized around this. Again, you'll see Labor for Palestine's logo there. They have branches in every province. And this week we launched an episode they've even got sections specific to education workers in Ontario who have mobilized, to their very specific ends. So if any rank and file union workers are not happy with how their union as a whole is responding to the genocide, there are organizations within that, like unofficial groups, that Labor for Palestine being one of them, that are working to fix that. And their work has paid off in New Brunswick. So yay. It's always good to share victories. Let me just scan and see if there's another victory. Yes, the ice resistance. This isn't a victory, but when people start to see these images over and over again of communities finding ways to come together and push back against power in really demonstrable ways. I'm going to load up a TikTok here, so bear with me because Joe left his seat. I'm going to blame Joe. Throw him under the bus here. But there's neighborhoods where ICE is being deployed on missions. I don't know what they would call it, but where they're raiding restaurants, en masse, knowing that kitchen workers, a lot of the lowest paid workers in the United States, are going to be undocumented, right? So the people that they're trying to deport. And so one way that communities are fighting back is mobilizing communities on things like Reddit. That's the example that they use here, but where we've done it for encampment evictions, where you're able to notify as many activists as possible and, physically stop the authorities from doing what they wanted to do. Do you want to, is that my feed you're got up there? I can run it, right?
No, no, I got mine. I can start for you.
Thank you, Joe. This is in Minneapolis again. You could have stopped that!
How did you know this was happening?
Reddit.
So for folks who can't see what we have on the screen, community members are, surrounding police and ICE workers. They're trying to build barricades around the vehicles to prevent them from detaining first and then leaving with, if they did manage to detain people in their community. They are yelling and naming and shaming these folks. Yeah. So one of the other clips that I don't have, but I've seen, community leaders pastors going up to the chief of police and saying, you stood in my church and you promised you wouldn't capitulate to ICE, that you wouldn't help them do their jobs, and you lied. and just really holding their feet to the fire. And meanwhile, she's surrounded, while she's confronting him, surrounded by community members yelling and trying to physically stop that. You don't often see that in the United States, right? So, and these images, like this is on TikTok, this has gone viral to an extent. There's way more videos out there where show like lines of community members just walking forward, like using police tactics of intimidation and numbers and lines to, push unwanted authorities out of their neighborhoods. This will build from there, right? Like when folks see this happening, they get more courageous. They think it's a choice. Like most people defer, even in their minds, right? Forget physically going up against authorities. That is daunting. But sometimes even in our minds, we figure, hey, if the cops are doing it, then that's what's supposed to be done. But this connection, that is breaking down. Yay.
Thank goodness.
I know not everyone would cheer there. But we will. You know our type, right? So, yeah, like we like to share moments of resistance like that, even it seems a little bit unconnected from the things that we're dealing with now. It's not, right? Like think of the mass deportation bill we just talked about. Canada likes to do it a little bit smoother, a little bit more behind the scenes, right? Not with militarized police forces posing as federal agents or whatnot, but
At least not yet.
no, but Kim, yes. I consider some of these direct actions by Last Generation to be victories as well. They get great press, like great, even if you're criticized, like the message is out there, then people need to talk about why those folks are blocking the street and spray painting shit and getting arrested. So you want to give us an update on the Last Generation actions from this week?
I can give you a bit of an update. I know a little of what's going on. So Last Gen has decided they're trying very hard to build on the wildfires and the smoke that's hitting our cities. And if you guys haven't noticed the smoke yet in your city, it won't be long. If you check the map on wildfires, there's a huge amount of red wildfires. And that means red is out of control, not under control. So it is a problem. The wildfires are well off to a good start. So they have decided that they are trying to demand a emergency force for not even just fires, but climate-related emergencies that we know are going to be hit with. So Ben here, who is spraying, he ends up getting arrested and he is taken into custody and spends the night. There were others. So there's been 3 days of action so far this week. And I understand that they're kind of planning to do 3 days a week over the next little while. So they're on a break today. But we currently have, I think, total was, I'm just looking in my notes to see if I can find how many total were arrested. And nobody is currently in jail. Everybody is out, and that is good. And in fact, there was a mobilization to get people to come to where two of our fellow disruptors were held and were supposed to be held overnight. And I guess they must have gotten wind that there was a movement to get people there in the morning when they're released. And so they got released early. They got released that day. They didn't spend the night in jail. So that was great news.
It was good. You don't often cheer when a action is canceled, but when I saw the update, I was like, oh, good.
Yes, excellent.
I interviewed G outside of jail support, and, one of their tactics is holding people as long as possible. They don't want a crowd gathering. So when they do, it's actually part of the pressure to get your comrades released, right? So we don't have a lot of tips for the end of the day. We're peppering them throughout, just like the updates. But, you got to mobilize jail support. In Ottawa, I'm not sure what it is in Montreal. Joe gave us a tip that there's one place basically in Ottawa that folks go when they're arrested. In Toronto, you have to figure out the detachment. But yeah, you don't leave until the comrades go home, or at least have a lawyer hooked up.
Well, I think that's really important to stress, because lots of people don't feel comfortable getting involved in things like Last Gen or Palestinian rights, etc., because they're afraid of being arrested. And maybe they're in a position where they can't get arrested. And that's okay. Not everybody can get arrested. We understand that. But there are things you can do, like jail support. Go to the jail, stand there, wait for people. you can actually also support people, as Jessa already indicated, with financial support. That is very important for these people who are now going to have to go through the court system and need representation. So there's lots of things you can do to support nonviolent direct action without getting directly involved. And so I'm urging more and more of my, folks who are more inclined to sign a petition and go to a rally to try to support the actions of those who are taking on the nonviolent direct action.
Yeah. Last Generation, I think, .ca for folks who want to get plugged in with them. I saw a TikTok of someone who's like, I'm in Vancouver and I keep messaging all these environmental organizations. They name some, I won't name them, but like they only get back to me and ask for donations. And, yeah, that's a necessity. And I get why they get pointed there. Onboarding is also, sometimes overwhelming for some organizations to find a role for everybody who wants to do something. But from my experience, Last Generation is pretty good with taking folks who are interested on various levels and plugging them into the work that they're doing. So, and they do have,
you can offer to fill it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you find that you're gapping, like something's not happening for you because you're in touch with these people, you can get in touch with them and say, hey, I might be able to help you with this, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great way to fill gaps.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, I ask organizations when we interview them about onboarding, are you prepared for it? Like, do you want volunteers to point in your direction? And some of them are honest. They're like, no, you know what, we are finding our footing. We are doing a little bit of housekeeping, and we see all these eager people, and it kills you to not be able to get them mobilized right when they're like at a fever pitch and wanting to help. So, tip to folks to kind of set some resources aside within your organizing to make sure that like someone is responsible for harnessing as much of that energetic kind of enthusiasm as possible when it's happening. But it is a difficult thing, especially for smaller, lower resource organizations, especially when they're trying to get their comrades out of jail first, right? It's hard to prioritize growth sometimes. Maybe you're not ready for it. One thing in terms of resistance that I think a lot of people are talking about, hopefully it's been getting a lot of exposure, some good, some bad. I like to talk about the responses to it as well, but the flotilla. It's also part of the March to Gaza that we can kind of talk about as well. The flotilla, or Freedom Flotilla, this isn't the first attempt to get aid into Gaza through a peace activist boat, right? And what's the name of their boat again? This time they're on the, maybe you got the name there, Marlena?
It's the McLean, as it's marked up here.
You. Yeah. So Joe's pulled up the tracker. They are also providing a lot of snippet updates, or clips where they'll come on. Famously, I think folks will recognize that Greta Thunberg is part of this delegation this time. This, I think, is her second time attempting to go on the flotilla. Maybe not. But the first time this particular group made an attempt, it did come under attack by the Israeli army. And so this is the second attempt. You'll see the little... Go ahead.
So Greta's the... so it's Greta Thunberg, as well as from Game of Thrones, another particular person that's on there.
An Irish actor, right. Liam something.
Liam, is that Liam Nelson or
there's some other notable figures on there as well, especially if you've been watching folks
Liam
covering
Cunningham.
Gaza.
Yeah, Liam Cunningham is his name, and so I think in some ways, whatever fame, whatnot, they're trying to use this as something to help at least keep attention on the boat in some way to try to protect it. And that's not a terrible thing. If it draws eyes to it, and if there's any attacks onto it, that they're able to call out international attention, like, hey, this boat with no weapons on it, carrying food and supplies, is being attacked.
Yeah, I mean, like, this again, they already came under attack, but yeah, it's Greta's personality here, I think, that's trying to act as a shield for them. So here you see a white person who's kind of like a bit of a darling of the environmental movement, right? She's young. Pigtails sometimes, like that quintessential child that everyone seems to fucking care about, right? Like and she understands that she's got that privilege that she carries and she's using it in the same way kind of Kim talked about earlier. And yeah, it kind of feels performative. It's like daring them to kill her in front of the world. And I can't imagine the kind of courage it takes to do something like that. But it does speak volumes to kind of where we're at media-wise and the strategies folks have to employ in order to do basic things like deliver fucking humanitarian aid, because the Canadian government's just going to issue another statement after statement after statement. I just want to note they're the little, you see their path. You're like, what were they doing? Did they get drunk? They're off the coast of, I think, Greece. And they detoured. They got a distress signal. We know this because they keep updating folks. They got a distress signal to pick up asylum seekers, some migrants who were in distress on the water. And so they picked them up and then they dropped them off to folks. Unfortunately, they got dropped off to the European fucking fascists patrolling the waters there, who are known to just then dump them in Libya. Anyway, that's maybe a story for Blueprints or maybe next week's Rabble Rants. But either way, it just shows you how the interconnectedness of all of this, right? Of all these movements. We talk about migration and whatnot. So this Freedom Flotilla kind of found themselves in the middle of that as well. So I've seen videos of people in Gaza watching the updates and waiting, not because, whatever they're carrying on that boat is going to be the be all end all of their survival, more of what it represents. Right? And if it's successful or not. Folks are looking for anything to fucking cheer for at this point. And right now it's the flotilla. It's going to team up with the larger movement there of March to Gaza. The idea is by land and sea, folks are going to try to physically go to the border as internationals. So Canadian contingents are headed there. I had a thing that I could show folks to give. It is getting some press coverage, like there's a Windsor couple that got decent coverage, and they're headed over to do the March for Gaza. Some of the doctors that you've seen talking to Parliament, or at least trying to, attesting to what's going on there. Oh, I should have put the other one up.
Oh, I know exactly somebody.
Yeah, sorry. But we will talk about that too. They are going to try to deliver aid and again, dare the Israeli authorities to attack them. And folks might see like, this is pointless. They're going to get themselves killed, blah, blah, blah. I get that. They know that. That's not news. But again, one of the tactics when you're bringing down such a huge power like that is to have them take their mask off, right? Have them show how illegitimate or delegitimate, how horrible they fucking are. And that helps bring down the whole Zionist entity, right? So it's an ugly fucking game. It's awful, the strategies we have to employ. But yeah, I mean, when we talk about this daring to kill them and perform horribly in front of the world, obviously we've seen like they don't really care, right? Like they are killing aid workers, hospitals. I mean, this isn't news to anybody watching. They've also done this before, right? Like in 2010, there was a raid on a ship that called itself the Freedom Flotilla. They might have had a different like operation name. Oh, here. Anyway, they killed 10 people. It resulted in the deaths of 10 folks. So, and this happened in front of the world. It was reported on at the time. This is obviously long before October 7, 2023, because there's been a siege on Gaza, and the supplies that have been restricted into Gaza for fucking decades would astonish you. I wish I had done and pulled that up. We've done episodes on it before, but I mean, like anything to do with babies, tons of medicine. The list is just inhumane, right? And this isn't a response to Hamas's October 7th. Like, this has always, not always, but been in place for a large point. So when they say they don't occupy Gaza because they don't have fucking military within, like, the Gaza Strip, which they do, it means like a complete hold and control of everything that goes in and out, water, electricity, and these supplies. So yeah, trying to get supplies into Gaza again is not even new. All right, and now it's more urgent because they're fucking starving to death en masse as part of a genocide. But it's been a necessity and a tactic by peace activists for quite some time. They go through the history a little bit on their Instagram. But they're also reporting that the Israelis keep issuing them warnings. There is a drone flying above them. We don't know what kind of drone it is, whether it has munitions or not. But they are being surveilled, even though they aren't anywhere near Israeli water. Or Palestinian water, rather. But yeah, so these are folks, they're trying to draw a lot of attention to it. They figure the more people that are watching and talking about it, the less chance they'll have to be attacked. So that's your rule, right? Make sure all your friends know that Greta Thunberg is on a boat and Israel wants to bomb her. So get folks riled up. If they didn't give a shit about Gazans, surely they'll care about Greta. I think that's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. I also got a clip from Dr. Yiping He from who's actually going to be doing the march. This is they kind of brought me to that. Reminded me of that clip. So
for sure, thank you,
what
Joe.
he has to say. Not a problem.
Hi, my name's Yipeng, and I'll be joining the march to Gaza with the Canadian delegation. I'm choosing to do this because marching and organizing and protesting with people of conscience from all over the world, including over 30 country delegations, and joining other people of conscience who have taken up the call that has come from Gaza, from Palestinians in Gaza, to protest at the Rafah border crossing, to let aid in, to bring an end to the famine and starvation that is affecting all of Gaza right now, and to put an end to the ongoing bombardments by Israel in Gaza, which is only possible by our government's complicity and support, such as the Canadian government. We have done so much work, including press conferences, protests, demonstrations, direct actions, letters, calls to members of parliament. And I think to do this kind of solidarity and to mobilize all of us and to do everything that we can within our power, and this is certainly within our power to do, to bring an end to genocide, to bring an end to famine, to bring an end to occupation, to do everything that we can to be in full solidarity with the people of Palestine when they experience an ongoing genocide. This is the least that we can do. This is something that we can all do to help bring an end to this suffering. So I hope that we all continue to do what we can from where we are to support the people that are choosing to put everything on the line so that they can see an end to this senseless violence, to this genocide in Gaza being committed by Israel and funded and supported and armed by countries like Canada. Thank you. Hi.
I was wondering, I sent you a link there, Joe, just 2 seconds ago. There's actually an update from the march to Gaza. If you want to. Oh, is it? You're slick, Rick.
I am. Look at that.
All right, let's throw it on. So here's the update. I won't spoil anything.
We are here, thousands of Israelis, Jews and Palestinians on the border with Gaza. We're just a few hundred meters from Gaza, and we are here to resist the annihilation of Gaza. We're here to resist the killing of children in Gaza. We're here to resist the starvation, and we're here to call to release all hostages in a deal. We are here because we cannot stay silent while this reality is going on. We cannot sit in our home and drink coffee or go to work normally when we kill dozens of people in each of every day. We cannot stay silent while our government is speaking about annihilation. So we decided to get up and do something. For days we're marching to the border of Gaza, and now look at how many people we are here on the border. So many people start doing what is needed to be done. So please join us, support our movement. We are here to call not only to end the horrors and the atrocities, we're here to call for peace. Yes, Israeli-Palestinian peace. This is the only solution that can save our lives, both of the Palestinians and the Israelis. Join us. We are here.
So, yes, they will continue to be joined by different contingents throughout, and it's just like, oh, it reminds me like the nationalist trope, while like if there's a Canadian contingent, we'll care about the whole thing, right? Like that's why they're getting their faces on there. That's why, you know, that elderly Windsor couple is like posing. They want you to relate to people that look like you, that are from where you are. And so if something happens to them, you know, yes, it's supposed to make you think about the genocide, but reality, it's like not daring. It adds value to their life because they're Canadian, right? It's like when a plane crashes and we want to know how many Canadians are on board, right? So it's using these harmful narratives and kind of turning them around, right? Like you kind of playing the game to add value to the work that they're doing. But you know, anything possible, right? People are working every angle possible. Education workers, again, were the theme for the Blueprints of the Disruption episode. They are, you know, organizing where they are in a school community. Some people are pushing politicians to do the right thing. And now you've got folks physically going to Gaza. I don't know how many times, like, folk, you know, that enters your brain, like going, all the resources that we have, like, can we not just like get the fuck over there? You know, like there's so many tens of thousands of people around the world that want to stop it, that I just can't take it anymore. And, you know, we've talked to activists like Anna Lippman who go over there, go over to the West Bank and act as human shields, right? To use their whiteness, their Jewishness, their Canadian citizenship or U.S. citizenship to act as a deterrent to settlers, right? You don't give a shit about Palestinian lives, and the world doesn't care enough about Palestinian lives, but should we mow down an American while we're taking this land? That would be a different story, right? That would force politicians to do something and whatnot. So yeah. Any thoughts on the march to Gaza, or, you know, where we're at in terms of this?
It'll be interesting to watch. I mean, they're only, this is the 6th. And the march at Gaza gets the culmination at June 15th. So it's, if they're already at this kind of crowd size right now on the 6th, this is pretty impressive. And they said they're expecting more to join, more contingencies to start joining in as they're getting in there. Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things that I definitely want to see the videos of what's coming out of there come March, June 15th.
I will be interested to see what the Israeli and American response will be. Right? I mean, it's going to be hard for them to find any way out of this. I can't imagine how they're going to play this.
Yeah. And we know, I mean, the contingency, like the group that's going to be there is definitely going to be streaming. They're definitely going to be videoing. They're going to be showing stuff. You're not going to be able to do anything around there without it being caught on a camera.
Unless they jam it. I guess that is one thing they could do.
Yeah, they could jam it. I don't know what the operations are like there. I mean, if there's also at least a contingency a little bit further away. I mean, jammers work in an area. So, right. And again, I'm assuming they're not going to be on the Israeli side. They're going to be on the Egyptian side of the border, which means they're Egyptian towers. You know, and messing with the Egyptian towers, you know, that's still an act of aggression onto Egypt. Don't know if Israel wants to deal with that right now.
Right.
You know, ignoring what they did in 1967.
Yeah, like I get it. You guys are acting like rational actors, though, right? Like you're
Yeah. Hence my
hypothesizing
reference
based
to
on
67. I
which
was like,
which we
they might.
want you to be, right? We want you to be rational actors, but they are not that. Remember, this is a holy war. They have gotten away with so much. My mom said the same thing too. Like a lot of people are feeling like this, and I think like Greta does add that extra factor, right? That can't be measured, right? But I think of Rachel Corrie. You know, I like grew up to a large part knowing that name, and that, you know, the Israelis ran over that American girl with a bulldozer, with a Caterpillar bulldozer, and no one did shit.
Yeah.
You know, activists tried.
Yeah, exactly. When you were talking about how this name, the names and the identities should protect that exact story that you were just mentioning, Rachel Corrie, in regards to the bulldozer, and how that story was just like, no, we didn't see her. It was an accident, and
And it's on video, right? It's on video. And then, you know, the genocide that's happening live stream. Like they don't bother blocking any of that. They let it stream, right? They control a lot of what can go in and out of Gaza, and still we see what we see, and still our state actors don't do anything, right? But yeah, again, that nationalist flavor does add like that extra pressure, like, oh shit, how many Canadians died? I'm definitely gonna have to issue a press release on this, right? Like, oh, I can't be my regular strongly worded email either. You know, politicians are actually going to be forced to at least pretend they saw it, you know, not like, oh, this was reported by, and we don't know, we can't confirm this. This is something that everybody is watching. And so, yeah, I think we've not been here before, but I don't expect any restraint from the Zionist state at this point. They have surpassed anything that I thought would be possible to do public and not face.
Agreed.
Sanctions.
But it is inspiring. It is inspiring to see all those people there and actually moving to do it. It was very inspiring to see that Canadian doctor talk about what he's doing and why he's going. What I look at as well is, if no matter what comes out of this, and I hope they are all safe and return home, but it will never be the same again after they've been there, right? I don't think it can go back to normal, which is what we're really hoping for, because this normal is not normal. We've normalized so much death and destruction that we need something to break that. And this could be the catalyst. What about Sudan, right? And what about all the other areas undergoing different varieties of siege, and, you know, all the migrants trying to come across, and, you know, where is all the noise about the people dying around the world because of climate and no one's paying attention? Or not even just climate. There's so many different issues in what they're calling the meta crisis. And yet many of us get up in the morning, have our coffee, and scroll through our phones. Like, what is happening right now? So this is really good to see, and it fills my heart.
I want to temper that, though. I'm like, but what will happen if something happens to them? Like, how will you feel? I saw a video from someone in Gaza, and as much as it doesn't like sit well, you know, they're like, don't try to empathize with us too much, because that's too much. Right? Like, how are you going to fight for us if you are so fucking depressed or anxious, or like trying to, like, you feel guilty about being able to feed your kids while we're starving? Like, you are not useful to me like that. You know, so I want you to draw joy whenever you can draw joy and hope. But at the same time, I want to protect you and go, okay, like, don't get too emotionally attached either, because like that will devastate you in ways that you know, maybe can't recover from, or then do something about it, right? Like,
but
react
isn't
to
it that kind of reaction that mobilizes people too? It can do both, right? It can send you into depression, or it can send you into action.
It can do both at the same time too, right? Like,
that's true.
it's such a messy thing to navigate. But I think like just being, just mentally, I think preparing yourself or separating yourself as you can. Like, it's not like you're going to stop fighting for Palestine, but as if you recognize that like part of your fight doesn't have to be being emotionally crushed by it.
Right.
Is just like a shield, even if it's an awful looking shield. Like, what do you mean you don't like think about what it's like to be in their shoes? Yeah. It's like, because that's not helpful right now. I'm already in the fight, right? Like that's a vision you've got to give to people who just like have just sat on the couch and not done anything. But like, if you are doing what you can, then, protect your mental health in the same way. But that's such a privilege to say as we see activists on a boat putting their life on the line, let alone their mental health, right? So it's messy. There's no right answer, but, you're a comrade. And I like, when I see you get excited about stuff that I'm worried about, I'm just like, oh, like the way we talked about to people about Carney. I know you're really happy Pierre's not in office, but I've got something to tell you. Like, just kind of buckle up a little bit. But I hope I'm totally wrong about this. I hope they get aid in there. I hope the siege is broken. Free Palestine, every fucking inch of it, right?
Absolutely.
But, I just want to be like, Kim, they'll do anything that state. So, but that isn't to kind of depress anybody either. I don't, it is a hopeful time for folks, especially when you see Gazans being hopeful of it. But then again, I think the same thing. I think when I see you going, this is great, I'm cheering for them and going, it's like watching the Challenger go up, too. It's like, fuck, because you've got like public figures too feeling no ways about calling for her death, right? Like, write their names down, like, so we can show them this afterwards. I don't know what they're thinking. Like, there's no humanity left in some people. I really, but like, even if you just care about your careers, calling on them to bomb a child. How old is she? I keep calling her a child. She might not even be, but like, just to bomb these peace activists who are trying to bring food and medicine. Like, where are you at?
Yeah. Well, that's how they've protected themselves. They've made them the enemy.
Mentally?
Yeah.
Or financially.
But in all ways possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's 22. So she's not quite a child anymore.
She has a very young face as well, though.
She does. But again,
and she grew up in front of us, right? Like, I think we'll always picture her as that pigtailed girl at the front of climate rallies, and then putting on a keffiyeh. Shout out to Miss Rachel too. Like, there's some folks, these white liberals that you just didn't know had it in them, I think, or you hope they did, but we've been disappointed so many times. Again, I'll go back to the episode. I'm not so much trying to plug it. It's just like always on my mind, but folks talked about organizing in equity circles and coming together, as I mentioned, but they also mentioned like finding out some people weren't actually really invested in anti-racism or in social justice, right? They had just lost their courage on this or were found on the wrong side. And so, they've been just disappointed also with folks that they thought should know better, who were brave enough to do better before, but just not in this atmosphere. So to see, Greta or, Miss Rachel, as superficial as it sounds, it fucking matters. It matters when those voices, because then, first of all, Miss Rachel's talking to the littles, right? That's like, Sesame Street, try to defund Sesame Street. Trump defunded Sesame Street. They're on Netflix now. What the fuck? Anyway, so like, you insert these messages at youth, and that's just great. But then also all these white liberals are going, oh my gosh, if Miss Rachel can do it, I can do it. So we'll take victories or kernels of hope, I guess, wherever we can.
We are still in the most bizarre timeline. Like, that's just where we're at.
Indeed. Yeah, it's tough for folks. I can understand folks not wanting to even watch the news at this point, just to kind of protect your mental health. But at the same time, there's just so much going on that you need to keep track of. They're kind of leaning on the fact that we're overwhelmed. and
Absolutely.
distracted talking about Elon and Trump and not paying attention to the nitty gritty of what they're trying to pull over.
That's a really good segue to just say our biggest impact can just be right here at home and in your community, right? By doing something kind, by being thoughtful of other people, understanding of other people and what's happening, creating community. That is the most important thing we can do right now for so many reasons. And so I'm really hoping that people will see what's going on around the world and want better for their immediate family and friends and community and get involved. This whole way of keeping us separate, the capitalist / colonial perspective of ownership and it's ours and we have to work hard to do everything ourselves, and it's like, no, it's all about community. It's all about how we thrive together and support each other. And so I'm hoping that march to Gaza and also Greta's work will show people that we can be community, and at a global level, but also right here, right now in your neighborhood. It doesn't have to be big. It can be really, really local. And Local Futures is going to be where it's at.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's your impact can be felt like immediately. I have one update that we definitely did not want to leave off the docket before we sign off. Yes, good. Thank you, Joe. Joe is going to tell us all about it.
Yes. So yes, June 10th, on Tuesday, June 10th, in courtroom 10 in Ottawa. So 10. Dina, my friend Dina Sharif, will be in court to address her charges of breach. Her original charges had to do with participation in a pro-Palestine protest back in April 15, 2024. On August 31st, 2024, she was breached on her conditions for having used a dog squeak toy while protesting a rally.
Nazis.
Actual Nazis. Actually, they were holding the individual in question is named by the name of Adrian Thomas, who goes by the name of Adrian the Realist. He's trying to bring back a National Socialist Party to Canada, restoring the Thunderbird. His Thunderbird looks almost identical to that of the Third Reich, including the wonderful symbol being held by the claws. And while they ran around with T-shirts, Ottawa Police only made one arrest that day, and it was for my friend who was using a dog squeak toy, because they believe they were protecting a peaceful Indigenous rally with, Nazi memorabilia.
So you're asking folks to fill the courtroom if they can?
We are absolutely asking folks to fill the courtroom. We're going to be there. So try to show up as early as possible. There's going to be a lot of people not as friendly that's going to be trying to go in there and take a look. And so we're trying to fill up. Obviously, Cafe is always going to be welcome there, as it is kind of the center point of this particular, the main trial. This is just going to be dealing with the breach part, but again, it's going to be interesting to see and watch them try to accuse somebody who was trying to stop a Nazi rally while they're also trying to allege that they're using hateful language themselves. So it's one of those, you need to pick a lane. So
one point that you're leaving out, though, maybe you mentioned it. I want to make sure everyone knows, because when I talk about this case, this is what strikes people the most. How long has she been held without bail?
So when she was originally arrested, she was held without bail until she went for a bail review, and the judge released her when they found that there was no justified cause for holding her for this long. She was in jail for 53 days at that point. And right now she's been in jail for the breach since August 31st, 2024. So we're over 200 days, almost a year.
It is almost a year.
Yeah.
So because it is. We cover a lot of activists that have been arrested, and this is an unusual pattern. I don't want to say oh, this won't happen to you, but it's usually 48, 72 hours max that folks are held in these kind of cases where it's mischief, even where they try to charge you for assaulting a cop, right? Those get dropped usually. But even when those are the charges, it's like if you're on the weekend, it might screw you up. But generally, they don't hold you for that long. But, to deny bail there's a lot of factors that play in here, but in essence, you have a peaceful protester that has been behind bars for almost a fucking year. And then, you have people going, oh, yay, Mark Carney's calling it for make it harder for people to get bail. Or, we're worrying about how many criminals the Toronto police round up and have to release because they're innocent. They have not had trial. So, yeah, that's just a shocking point, I think, people hear, because her case doesn't get a lot of enough attention, in my opinion, especially considering that factor, it's like they're testing to see what they can get away with. And
one of the challenges is the publication ban. A lot of the media doesn't want to touch it because there's a publication ban on it. So what the publication ban means is you can't discuss things that's going on within the trial. So, and this also includes in regards to the breach trial. I can't talk about what's going to be happening within the trial until the trial is done. I can talk about the events that occurred because they're all public live streams. So this is where the publication ban gets kind of weird, as in I can't talk about what's going to be going on in the courts. I can only talk about, I could talk about the live stream. I can even show you the arrest. I could show you the video clips that surround the whole thing. I could talk to you about the day of and the people that were there, like question like Adrian Thomas and associates in regards to all this event. That could all be shown. You guys can all determine like, hey, this what's going on here. But yeah, the publication ban doesn't allow us to discuss what's going on within the trial until once it's done, which we will be finding out because the trial is scheduled for 4 days. I don't think it's going to be 4 days. That's just the way they segment it out. So we may find out it's going to be done by the end of the first day, or it could be the full 4 days, but I highly doubt it's going to be 4 days. There's not really that much to go over. So.
And is this Deanna Sheriff? I'm just making sure that I've got the right. Okay. Thank you.
This is Dina Sharif. Yes.
Dina.
Oh, So this is this has been her ongoing struggle right now in regards to she's been there now for a year. So, and she tried to get bail on the original bail conditions. The judge, the Justice of the Peace denied it. And so now we're waiting on in regards to this. And this is going to be coming June 10th,
Is that Monday?
June 10th to 13th. And then once this is done, the next trial won't be till January 2026 in regards to the main trial. So, and even if she succeeds in regards to this, let's say she gets completely exonerated, like all charges are dropped, or they're found not guilty on all of them, she'll still be in jail.
No, don't. I didn't want you to. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Till January.
It's just because you're found not guilty on all the charges. In regards to this, you're still in jail because you still need to get bail. You're still stuck in there. You're not automatically brought back out. So you're still stuck in there. And which means she needs to go do another bail review. And if she's denied again, she could be stuck in there till January.
Hopefully, lawyers can mount a case if she's cleared on this, that there's fewer reasons to deny this mom bail. So I hate to play the mom card there, but I do think of that whenever I think of how long she's been locked up and how I would be coping through that, like not well. So it makes me very angry when I think of Dina's case. So the more folks that can highlight that, if you're not in Ottawa, is it freedina.com? I mean, there was... Right? Yeah, there is. Oh, .ca. Okay, so there's other ways you can learn more about the case, and you can always follow Joe. He gives occasional updates when he can. I never know what he's allowed to talk, and then I talk to him off the record, so I'm like, I don't know what I can share sometimes, but making noise around it helps with a lot of these cases. We saw Sky Johnson use her social media and the mobilization in Toronto of different organizations that are doing Pally Solidarity work to ensure that she had the best possible outcome out of her court case. And that involved, stacking the courtroom, letting the judge know that there's eyes on the case, and it helps. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes lawyers will advise against it, that they think the Crown would behave better if people weren't watching. They want to avoid embarrassment or whatnot. But, if you do hear calls out like this, there's ways you can help the incarcerated or the folks facing these bullshit charges for just doing good trouble work. Yeah, it's hard because, I sit here advocating for people to cause trouble and knowing that quite a lot of them will get arrested. So
maybe I missed it, but what exactly do they have against her to not give her bail? I'm still a little dark about that.
So during the ruling in regards to the last bail condition, when it's bail is awarded by the Justice of the Peace. It's not awarded by a judge. And one of the things because one of the things I checked with was also the lawyer in regards to the judgment. The judgment, in regards to the judgment, the Justice of the Peace just said that they felt that they could not trust her if she was to be released, so she would be a danger. And so
because she's a mom, right?
We're not even sure in regards to they said they don't trust her not to reoffend. I'm like, that's rich.
Because
of the Crown,
once you're charged with breach, right? That's kind of signals that you're not following, even though she didn't breach. That's the argument, right? Like, she didn't actually breach, but once the court is presented with kind of evidence that you didn't respect the bail conditions or whatever conditions they put on you, that is a huge aggravator in trying to get bail again.
Oddly enough, she's one of the few examples where somebody gets denied bail because of a breach. There is litany of cases. This case, as many lawyers have looked and observed, is kind of strange in the amount of the lengths that the law is going in regards to her. Like, once this is all done, there is going to be a lot of discussions in regards to how did this get out of control? Why did this get out of control? We can't talk about the whole thing yet, but yeah, January is going to be a very, very interesting time.
Yeah, all the best luck. I mean, share that link if you can for courtroom access for folks who want to just watch it remotely. Again, like, there's not much you can't disrupt. That's not the idea. It's just like having folks know a lot of eyes are on. A lot of tenant groups are using this in their online appearances in the tribunals, right? The landlord-tenant tribunals. So, it just kind of keeps people in check a little bit, right? Nothing good happens behind closed doors often. So, shedding as much light on it as possible. We will update folks with whatever we can next week, as well as unpacking whatever awful headlines float through this week. And hopefully you'll join us, share the feed with folks who want to catch their headlines a little bit later, who couldn't make the stream today. We're here every Friday at noon Eastern. Luckily, we have special guests that join Joe and I to help us unpack something a little bit deeper than maybe we could have on our own. And we very much appreciate you coming and joining us, Kim, to go over Bill 5. That feels, I feel an episode brewing there in terms of talking about possible resistance and the promises coming from folks creating a coalition there. That's very promising. Blueprints has an episode dropping on Tuesday, as we always do. This week, we are talking to StopGenAI.com, or the people behind it, rather. We're not talking to a website. There's people running it, and it's a campaign against Gen AI. They explain the trappings of it. There are so many. I mean, I just kept taking notes. Like, there's so many reasons folks should not be using Gen AI and, maybe actively mobilizing against it. They talk about how to hold people up through this kind of huge job loss transition in the tech industry that comes from it. I mean, that's just one of the drawbacks, but they are our next guests. And so folks can check out the podcast on all of their, whatever they use to listen. We're everywhere. Plus it shows up on YouTube here. Anybody else have anything that's coming up in the next week that they want to brag about or tease folks about?
No.
No.
My main one's definitely going to be Tuesday.
Yeah, I imagine you.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we have a decent update then next Friday. But my thoughts are with you, Joe, there, and with Dina. That's a hard one. So yeah, good outcomes hopefully for everybody. We'll be watching the flotilla, obviously, and by the time we come back here, we'll update folks on the march to Gaza as well. So be sure to tune in next week. Until then, keep disrupting, folks, and check on your comrades.